Good morning, Canes fans. Peter Rees here. Welcome into CanesInSight Daily. As you guys have seen all week, shows have been a little different with both D-Money and I out of the country, but we're bringing you the latest as always. And today, D's going to have a couple segments after this. I'm going to have my own piece as well. We're going to be starting number one with the pick of Tony Johnson at wide receiver from Cincinnati. D's going to break that down for a few minutes just after this intro here. Then, of course, Canes baseball is hot right now. One of the hottest teams in the country. Huge series against NC State this weekend in Coral Gables at the Light. Need all the Canes fans out there. So D will break down what Miami's done the last few weeks here, and then looking ahead to the series this weekend against NC State. And then I have a little something different as well. I had an interview with Alec Roth, who's the director of the Cam Ward documentary series Zero Star. You guys might remember back in November, this announcement that was made that there was going to be a documentary of Cam following him throughout the season from his decision pretty much to go to Miami and, forego the NFL draft last year, leading into a lot of stuff that's happened now for Cam. So excited for you guys to get an inside look at what's happening there from the director of that documentary, Alec Roth. Before that, wanted to thank, of course, our friends at Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733 to take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Guys, coming up next year on the CanesInSight Daily podcast, D-Money is going to break down the pickups of Tony Johnson at wide receiver. Going to take a look at what Canes baseball has done. And then again, I have an interview with the director of the Cam Ward Zero Star documentary. Hope you guys enjoy. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
What's up, everybody? This is D-Money live from the land of the rising sun here in Tokyo. Had to chime in on Miami's newest portal addition. That is wide receiver Tony Johnson, originally from Ocala, Florida. This guy was an academic walk-on, so academic scholarship walk-on at FAU. Ended up earning his way to the Power 4 level with Cincinnati, and now is a Miami Hurricane. Just a quick look at the numbers here. 108 career receptions, over 1,100 career yards, 13 touchdowns, 6 foot 190, so he's got good size for a slot. At Cincinnati last year, 449 yards and led the team with 6 touchdowns. Was in the slot for 77% of his snaps, so that's where you could project him to major here at Miami. Returning to his home state, choosing Miami over FSU, who wanted this guy bad as their number 3 receiver, and UCF. So, some of the reaction is focused on, hey, this is not, wide receiver 1, all that kind of stuff. Here's what I'll say about this addition. First of all, you love the fact that this guy's been in Power 4, produced in Power 4, and is a high character guy, like an academic scholarship guy, originally walk on, got it through the mud, as the kids say. So this guy's worked his way up. So I like all of those aspects for a rotation piece. Then you say, okay, look at the receiving room. You want 10 scholarship guys there. If you were there in spring, I was there pretty much every practice. Those of you who went out to the spring game saw a lot of white guys with number 40 jerseys, right? Jersey numbers in the 40s, getting snaps at wide receiver. That means the depth was not where it needed to be from a scholarship perspective. So you look at the roster now. JoJo Schrader, you're counting on him to be the number 1 guy. You were hoping like you landed like an Eric Singleton type in the portal, but that just wasn't there. We'll talk about that when we do our portal wrap up, but you really, really need JoJo Schrader now in his second year as a top 75 prospect, guy who's flash in the bowl and other times and in practice. He needs to be the number 1 receiver. And you got 3 guys who have played behind him. CJ Daniels, who's played the most meaningful snaps and has had the most production. Big receiver, capable of very spectacular contested catches, had one of the best catches I've ever seen in spring, but needs to continue to get healthy from his foot injury. I think he will, but that's one to watch. So you got him. You got Keelan Marion, the wide receiver / All-America kick returner from BYU, who's going to be taking a greater receiving role this year. He was hoping to be BYU's number 1 receiver this year coming up. Now Miami's hoping for him to take that kind of jump. He was a 4-star receiver transfer according to 247, but there's, stuff to prove as a receiver, but he's played. Then you look at Tony Johnson here sliding in. So those are the 4 guys who've had some experience. Then you talk about Ray Joseph, somebody who has been around, worked hard, and is going to get a chance to play here. Then once you get past those 5, you're looking at young players. Nikar played a little, but really hasn't played. Former top 75 prospect as well. Super talented. Didn't have a great spring. We talked about it when he jumped in the portal that, kind of stagnated in spring a little bit, was banged up. And then these freshman receivers passed him by in spring. He came back to Miami, and he's going to have a chance to earn his spot. A very talented player, needs to gain weight. So you got Nikar in the mix. Talk about Chance Robinson, a guy who's been banged up, a former 4-star player, really good size. Kind of the opposite of Nikar in terms of his body. His body's ready for college. He needs to get on the field from a health standpoint. And you got the 3 freshmen, Malachi Toney, who looks like he's going to be an instant contributor, Josh Moore, and Dalen Upshaw. All 3 of those guys, to me, were among the stories of spring because they were consistent and they made a lot of big plays. But you need those guys to deliver. Let me say it differently. You want those guys to deliver, but now you don't need them to deliver because you have more veteran depth with guys like Tony Johnson. So those are 10 scholarship receivers. I think what you're looking at here is a need for some of the more talented upside type players on the roster, your JoJo's, your freshmen, maybe your Nikars, for those guys to really step up. Not all of them are going to. They're young, but if you can get a couple breakouts out of that group, which, look, Clemson won the ACC with young receivers doing those kind of things. So if you can get young production out of some of those guys, maybe like a JoJo and a Malachi, Josh Moore, who knows? Upshaw can do it. Carr can do it. Some of those guys have the talent to break out. I think they all have the talent to break out, and some of them will. Then you look at the veterans just kind of doing their job and being solid with a Tony Johnson, maybe Keelan Marion giving you more as a receiver and taking that next step, putting that athletic tools that allowed him to be an All-America kick returner at 6 foot, 200 pounds to use as a receiver. And then CJ Daniels maybe getting back to some of his Liberty type speed after that foot surgery that he had. Still has the great contested catch ability that he just showed at LSU and elsewhere. Now you're starting to look like a receiving core. Look, did you want a wide receiver 1 like an Eric Singleton? Yes. But I think this is the best option that you had given that was in the portal. Remember, Keelan Marion, who still has a lot to prove as a receiver, the BYU transfer to Miami, he was a number 1 ranked receiver in that spring portal. I believe Johnson, who just committed, was the 4th ranked guy in that spring portal. So, or at least the 4th ranked guy left. So these are guys that were good options for now and have production and have more to give. And again, with Johnson, I like the character side of him because he's shown he can get open. He's shifty. He's shown he can make plays, at the college level, the Power 4 level. But now when you factor the character into account, it's a guy you feel comfortable bringing in your room to play a role. Also a guy originally from Ocala. So he's a Florida guy coming back home. And former walk-on, like I said. So he's done it the hard way. So overall, if you take the move for what it is, a very, very solid move. If you think this guy's going to be, Jeremiah Smith or someone like that, that's probably not going to happen. But it's about making this team the best it can be given what your options were. And I think this is somebody who makes a lot of sense to help this team and to get us to that number of receivers that we want from a depth standpoint. So welcome to the U, Tony Johnson. I'm excited to watch this guy play. I think he's going to push Malachi Toney and Jerry Joseph in the slot. Malachi Toney's going to have a chance to start and be a major impact player in the slot, but it's not going to be handed to him because now you have a player who's a veteran who is primarily a slot receiver who's, up to 190 pounds, has been around the block to make him work for it. Or, maybe it's just going to be a split situation. Ray Joseph's going to have his say as well. So overall, a good move if you take it for what it is. All right, so I'm back here from a baseball crazy nation in Japan where there's baseball everywhere, even more than I thought going in, to a baseball crazy city and school and the hottest team in America, and that is the Miami Hurricanes. JD Arteaga's squad is on fire. I can't wait. When I get back Saturday, I will be there at the Light this weekend against NC State. Huge series for the Red Hot Miami Hurricanes. Make sure to get your tickets at MiamiHurricanes.com. Just click tickets. It is the best deal in town, and this is a team worth watching, right? Left for Dead by a lot of people. I know I didn't lean for Dead, but I had some concerns, man. It was looking ugly at that first Duke game, and then they've turned it around. You look at winning the Pitt series, winning the Duke series, sweeping Georgia Tech, and then sweeping Boston College. I mean, just unbelievable. 8 straight wins in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Look at the total record, 27-18, 12-9 in the ACC. They're tied for 7th in a loaded conference, a conference that very likely, in my opinion, is going to produce the national champion, or at least a national championship contender that's going to take on the ACC or the SEC. Maybe it'll be the Canes. I mean, we'll see. But you look at some of the numbers. They're ahead of schools like Virginia and Wake Forest. Virginia, national championship program. Wake Forest, top 10 pick factory. Miami's ahead of them in the ACC, just to give some perspective. 6 in ERA, that's really been the story of the team. The offense, continues to kind of lag behind a little bit. 15th, which is second to last in runs, last in hits. The speed is there, 7th in steals. But the big bats are starting to hit. You're seeing Cuvée really go on a tear. Daniel Cuvée, top third baseman in America. Max Galvin, really, really talented lefty hitter, starting to come on. So with those bats coming on, Jake Ogden's been outstanding all year. You are seeing the offense get just enough with the great pitching. And the pitching really has been the star of the show. Start with Griffin Hugas, the right-hander. We talked about him a ton before the season, said this guy's as a future pro. Keep an eye on this guy. Former two-way player from Cincinnati, shifted to pitching only, and he has been Miami's ace, turned into their Friday guy, been their best pitcher really all year. 3.56 ERA over 60 innings pitched, 68 Ks, great swing and miss, incredible movement on his fastball, good off-speed stuff, great athletic delivery, and just a winner and a stopper for the Miami Hurricanes this year. He'll be pitching on Friday at the Light. Then you go to the young pitchers, man. This has been the biggest story, I would say, of the turnaround is the 2 true freshman starters that were inserted, big right-handers. We talked about them on CanesInSight, me and Sebastian Font, saying, hey, keep an eye on these guys. They look the part. They're a little more advanced than I thought they would be. But the 2 true freshmen have shown up big, and really them shifting into those Saturday and Sunday roles has turned around the season. Because you look at AJ Siskar, the big righty from St. Thomas Aquinas, 3.98 ERA, 40 innings pitched, 40 Ks in those 40 innings, and he has got really, really nice off-speed stuff, just a bulldog demeanor. His pace is outstanding, fun to watch just because the game flies by and he's so aggressive. And then Tate Durias, someone I remember watching him in a spring in a fall scrimmage saying, man, who is this guy? Because I hadn't heard a lot about him, but he just looked the part of a future pro pitcher. Big 6'4" frame from New Jersey, 2.60 ERA, man. If you know anything about current college baseball, that is microscopic in the modern era. 34 innings pitched, so he's got enough work now to believe in some of those numbers. More of a contact pitcher right now than Siskar, but not a guy that people don't square up. So this team is peaking at the right time heading into NC State. NC State's coming off a sweep over top 3 team Clemson. So you look at that and you say, this is the red hot NC State team. This was a team that was outstanding last year. So it's a huge test, man. Just looking at the matchup, it's really 2 hot teams, but you're coming to the Light. So you're hoping that's going to be a raucous environment. Again, you look at NC State, they were in the College World Series last year. So, a team to be reckoned with. And it's going to be a major, major challenge for the Miami Hurricanes. But tickets are on sale at MiamiHurricanes.com. So do not miss the opportunity to see this Red Hot Ball Club. It was a lot of fun. This is a team that's gritty. You look at the stats hitting-wise, you say this should not be a team that's playing as well as they are compared to like Wake Forest, who's got top 10 picks on their roster. But it's the fact that Cuvée is playing like a superstar. Guys like Galvin are showing what they have. And then just the timely hitting, the clutch factor, the competitiveness, and then the great pitching. Also, Brian Walters moving from that Sunday starter to the bullpen role, which I think suits him better. He is obviously his brother, Andrew Walters, was one of the best closers in Miami history. Now with the Cleveland Guardians, big time prospect for them, who's ready to touch the major league level. So, that was a huge move. And this is a new team, the hottest team in baseball and college baseball. And it's going to be a fun time. So make sure you check out the Canes this weekend at the Light.
Joining us now on the CanesInSight Daily podcast. I'm really excited about this guest, guys. It's a little outside the box, right? So we usually get, the players, the coaches, stuff like that on here as guests. But this one is very special. We have writer, director, producer, Alec Roth of Firebrand Media joining us today. And Alec is the director of the Zero Star documentary series featuring Cam Ward in this documentary. You guys might remember back in November, a story came out by Variety that the Cam Ward documentary was going to be on its way and in production. And here we have the director of it all, Alec Roth. Alec, man, appreciate you joining me today. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm I've been watching the draft for the last 3 days, and was just happy that Cam was number one, so we didn't have to. We're not in Shador's situation or anything like that. But yeah, no, it's been a fun watch so far.
Yeah, and listen, guys, just complete full disclosure here. Alec, me and him went to school together at Miami back in the day, so he's a Cane. So it's got to be cool for you, Alec, to kind of be close to this story. And this is something that, again, although it was announced in November that it was in production, this has been in the works for a while before Cam even made the decision to come to Miami. So take us all back. We'll get into the project as a whole in a bit, but I want to talk about your initial meetings with Cam and kind of how that relationship came together and how this documentary itself came together.
Yeah, definitely. So, I've been, I grew up out in LA and have been a part of this sort of Hollywood sphere for my whole life. My father's a screenwriter and has made some incredible films. He wrote movies like Benjamin Button and Forrest Gump and The Insider and Star is Born, and I can go on and on and on. And I followed in the same path and ended up writing and directing multiple projects that are coming out. We hope this year and into next year as well. And that my life has been a filmmaker. That's what I do. I make movies, and it's been a dream come true to be able to do that. And one of my best friends, who I've known since I was, maybe 9-10 years old, a guy by the name of Robbie Clifford. He worked at CA Sports for a number of years, and then left. I want to say probably 3 years ago. And he kind of went into his own sort of world and trying to figure out how to work with clients, work with different athletes, on and off the field. And we had gotten a call through a mutual connection. And he was living with me at the time, Robbie, and it said, "Hey, you should go meet this kid, Cam Ward." At the time he was at Washington State. And he was just, at that time, I believe they were around 4-0, 5-0 Washington State. But and I'm a huge college football fan. I love Miami. I die for the Canes. But I also knew of Cam Ward, but there was nothing for, Robbie was sort of like, "Hey, do you want to just come and meet this kid?" And, again, like I said, I'm a movie maker. I don't have anything to do with college football. I love it. I love watching it, but it's not really my world that way. Anyways, we ended up not meeting Cam that day, but we drove out to Pasadena and met the family. And it was one of the more, when you just go into a meeting and you just know there's something there's something special. We met with his sister and his father and mother, and I can't tell you how incredibly special the family is. Something that I think when kids go through this draft process, that they do little things here and there, but he is, that whole family has that zero star mentality. I mean, they are. It's and I remember talking about Kobe Bean, and I'm an LA guy, and I actually kind of liked Kobe as he got later in his career, but they have that mentality. So anyways, we met with them, and it was really a special meeting, and we talked about a possible documentary. It really was a special moment. And I said, look, I'm a filmmaker. If this is something that you guys are interested in, and we were in LA, and I sort of told them my background, and I said, look, his story is incredibly, obviously worthy of one. But
this is cool. This is crazy to me, because this is, again, just to remind the people who are listening, this is 5 games into his season at Washington State. So yeah. You're saying it's an incredible story, but this is before he makes the decision to go to Miami, and and then of course everything plays out how it is. So
exactly.
I mean, that to me is not to cut you off there, but just to remind people. So at that point, you already knew, like, all right, even his path to this point has been pretty out of the ordinary.
Completely. And I think I was sort of trying to, because I didn't know much about his story. Again, this is Robbie saying, "Hey, do you want to come?"
You just said, "Look, he's a good football player. I'd love to see what the
Yeah,
story is."
yeah. It was a Saturday. I love college football. I knew that they were playing. I think they were playing UCLA that weekend, and it was just a fun thing. And I, Robbie's my boy, and literally my best friend. And so we drove out, and it's just funny how these things happen, how the world works.
Yeah.
And from there we watched the season, and he was obviously incredible. This is actually his second year watching it, but he was incredible, and he was putting up numbers, and I was watching him play, and I was just like enamored. They weren't winning games,
Well, and it's that I know you're on the West Coast, so it doesn't, you got that West Coast, the East Coast bias there. So us over here in Miami, especially the people who ended up, Miami fans didn't know much about him when his name. So you can imagine a lot of, fans down in the South and the SEC fans, like his name wasn't a household name by any stretch at that point.
Yeah. And so we went through the season and then got to meet him and start to talk about the documentary. And I can't tell you, I've met some really amazing sort of, people that have been through so much to get to the top of, at least of the Hollywood industry, and actors and filmmakers and directors. I've never met anybody like him. He is, and I know we've heard it so much, but when we met him and I connected to sort of the Canes faithful, and I remember this, like you said, Pete, people didn't really know about him. And I was just so excited to, whether it was on Twitter or wherever it was, to be like, get ready, because I just, and look, I didn't know if he was coming to Miami. We didn't know, we didn't know if he was going to the draft. We had no knowledge of anything, the same way that sort of the same thing with the school. But I knew that whether he was going to go to the draft then or he was coming to Miami, he was going to be a dog. And he is just, and it's a mentality thing. But it's also, he respects you as well. It's not just sort of like, oh, I'm the best and forget everybody. It's really, he listens to you. He's very friendly. He's very sweet. And I just, I can't say enough about him and the family. The family to me is really something that, I think when you meet Chantel and Calvin and Patrice and they're just really remarkable people. So anyway, so that's sort of how it carried in. And then obviously Miami, and coming and having the year that he did was like,
listen, it makes your job a little easier, I'd imagine.
Exactly.
Now I had a question. I'm sure Miami fans would be interested in this. Not to give away too much, how much of that decision-making process were you guys able to document when he was trying to figure out, do I head to the next level now or do I come to Miami, which obviously the decision was a great one for him. So how much of that were you guys around for in terms of documenting it? And then obviously the season at Miami, as you mentioned, like there has to be some pretty great stuff from that run that you guys were able to capture.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away too much.
Yeah, of course.
We were definitely a part. We were there. We were right at the precipice of that decision. The one thing I'll say about Cam is he cares about football. Doesn't, that's what it is, and we wanted to leave him, really focused on football and the year that he was having, getting, certain, but again, you have to remember, we have such a great relationship with the family, and to be able to work with them and to be able to see what they're going through. And then, running up to, and we've been able to work with the University of Miami and a lot of the people there, the social teams and all the great people there. And they've been amazing to get the type of footage that we want, to get the sort of storyline and narrative through, that we want to get. And the people we've been talking to in terms of getting interviews and stuff like that has been really incredible. But and then we really, the one place that I think is really special is the Heisman, really some great material and but I'll let you guys watch that because And I think just real quick, Pete, I think one of the things that's really special is the stories in their interviews, right? Miami 100%, but hearing how they got to where they got to from high school, and he was, and I'm not spoiling anything really, but he was going to be a basketball player. This is a kid who loved basketball, but there's little stories that I can't wait for you guys to hear, because it's not even necessarily from Cam. It's from the family. That's really special.
Now I'm interested, because you hear so much about Cam, and he's a very aware individual. He knows his audience. You see him on the streams on Fortnite, and he's talking to the Titans fans, basically saying that they've got 2 of the top 5 running backs in the league. Like, he knows who's listening. How was he around the cameras? I mean, we know he's a very confident person, but does the personality change at all in front of the cameras? I mean, from what you guys have seen, I mean, just talk to me about that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think well, first of all, it doesn't, but I do think there was an element of, because we really wanted to focus on the family, that there was an element of you saw it at the draft. There was an element of emotion that came out, and seeing how incredible of a human being this person is, not just a fierce competitor and the Mamba mentality and all that, but and I've said that to Calvin, I've said that to Chantel so many times, like, you guys raised such a good kid, forget the rest of it, So I think a little bit of that came out while working with him, but you guys will see that, and and it really is a testament to what being overlooked can do. I think people forget that being humbled can and I have been humbled in my own ways, and I think it gives you a sense of authenticity in a way, and there's no one more authentic than Cam Ward, and he is truly one of a kind, and I'm so incredibly grateful and blessed that we are able to work with him and the family.
Now, talk to us about because it's Zero Star documentary. It's going to be somewhat of a series, from what I understand. Cam is going to be the first installment. Listen, man, we haven't seen it yet. I'm just saying it might be pretty tough to top this story that you guys have. So you picked a good one to start with, but talk to me about kind of like the idea behind it, and why Cam was the perfect person to start with.
Well, yeah, and by the way, it's sort of spurned from Cam, right? I mean, it wasn't as if we thought of this idea and then we found Cam and he was perfect to fit in. This was seeing his mentality, the way that he goes about his day to day, and the way that his work ethic, and for us, it was really, and I think it also played into what I think is really special and interesting, at least for a viewer, is this idea of the Zero Star system, right? How do we rank people, and whatever whatever industry that is, right? Like, what makes someone, and obviously in sports, it's a little bit different, because, you can see talent on the field and there's statistics and all that.
Well, listen, a lot of people who watch this show are big fans of the recruiting side of it. And it's always like, well, how did this guy who was a 3-star ended up becoming better than this guy who was a 5-star? And then, there's a lot of questions like that. It's not always the case, but that's an interesting, aspect to look at.
And how many guys are getting overlooked? I mean, how many guys that then don't get the opportunity to then, prove, maybe they, and it's, you would assume that, and Cam's probably a good example of this, that if you have the talent and you have the work ethic and you have the ability,
someone will find you. Yeah.
But I don't know.
Limited opportunities, though. It's limited opportunities.
And by the way,
every case is different.
Yeah. And by the way, that's why we're, not 100 with the Zero Star idea, and we want to make this Cam's world, and the family's world. So so whoever we do a focus on, Cam it's his brand, and he has his own brand, which is Cam One, which is his world as well. But this is, Zero Star is an idea that we all came up together, and
nice.
So and we believe that there's stories outside of sports There's stories in all sorts of different businesses. In entertainment, of course, there's people who, you know, came from nowhere to win Oscars and all sorts of, you know, politics, you know, especially. So we really feel like,
I guess you could, this could be, I guess you could consider this. I mean, Cam's one of his first forays outside of the world of sports, in a sense.
Yeah, and
outside
again,
of football.
Yeah, and again, it's a natural one, and I think it's not, you know, and then at the end of the day, and I'll say it again, his world is football. You know, he's focused on, you know, every day getting there and trying to win, because he knows what it takes to overcome people not believing in you, and that's a tough thing, especially in our. I mean, Pete, you know, in our world, you know, and I'm terrible at it in terms of like getting distracted, you know, with whatever, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, and worrying about our Canes. But, you know, I think he showed that even today you can be overlooked, you can be, you know, passed on, and, you know, you still can have that focus and overcome that, which is incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
So, look, I know that you know, we don't have exact dates and it's still in production, but can you kind of give the people an idea of, you know, what to look out for in terms of the timing and you know, where they can kind of be looking out for details of you know, how to watch when it's ready?
Yeah, and we're gonna keep people updated. Firebrand Media Group, which is my production company, work with Robbie, who I mentioned, Josh Clayton, who's
and I'll link that in the bio, Canes fans, or the description of this interview. So you can look
and like I said, we're in production on the project and getting great material, getting great people to come and interview, but we will make sure that we keep everybody updated, and we're in talks with some great platforms and abilities to go see it. So it's gonna be special. It's gonna be something that you know you've seen sort of the ESPN or the, you know, kind of one-off type of, you know, looks at him, but this is something that's much deeper. It's something that goes a lot more into the world of the family, into Cam, into all sorts of different things. You know, also, like we talked about, recruiting, NIL, some really, really fun stories and interesting stuff that went on with Cam, but also is going on, you know, on a broader scale as well.
Now, what's the I mean, are you guys going through the draft with him here, and that's, you know, the end of the documentation? Where is that? Not to give too much away here, but you know, I'm trying to, you know, I want to keep that one.
I'll keep that one holstered, because I think this will be something that people will really enjoy in terms of where it ends and where it doesn't, because, as you know, his story is somewhat just beginning, which is absolutely insane, you know. For a kid who's been through so much, and a dude who, you know, it's like,
I mean, was over. I mean, you
could one is Lord of the Rings, right?
And look, you could say we did a clip on it. Most of our followers have seen it. You could say he was overlooked even on draft night, with the I would call it lack of coverage. I mean, didn't really give him the full coverage that they would a normal first round pick, I would even say.
Yeah, no, it was odd, you know, and I don't know what it is about Miami, maybe, but there's some, you know, and I even see it on game day, by the way. But, you know, I think yeah, I mean, and I know Cam, you know, he's gonna show up for what he needs to show up for, you know, in terms of his obligations, and because he wants to respect everybody. So it wasn't like Cam was spurning interviews or anything like that, or, you know, I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. And obviously, I think the sort of narrative of Shador and everything that's going on there might play into it. But you know, but yeah, no, it's, you know, and by the way, I love the Titans organization. I think it's an organization that's been such a great one over many years, and so glad that Cam can go play there. And I think it's like the perfect perfect place. You know, it really
Mhm.
is. Yeah.
Man, I'm pumped for this project to come out. I know Canes fans, Cam Ward fans, Titan fans. I mean, and look, this is, like we said, this is for right now, but really excited to follow this project as it continues to grow, Alec. And again, going to have that information in the description of the interview for everyone interested to go, follow them, Firebrand Media, for updates on this project. So Alec Griffin Roth, man, excited for this stuff and appreciate you joining us today, man.
Thank you. Go Canes. I gotta do this because
There you go.
Yeah.
Go Canes.
All my love.